The U.S. military's recent operations over the past 7 weeks in the Middle East have now triggered the most severe combat readiness crisis since the end of the Cold War. Based on internal assessments, it looks like Washington has burned through nearly half of its total guided missile inventory. They've used up around 45% of their precision strike missile, or PrSM stock, almost 50% of their Patriot system interceptors, 50% of their THAAD missiles, and 20 to 30% of their Tomahawk cruise missile reserves. Meanwhile, down in South America, Brazil is boosting its naval power by ordering a second batch of stealth frigates. This is a joint project between Germany and local manufacturers, based on the MEKO class design. Let's break down these two massive stories one by one, starting with the US. The availability of US military interceptor missiles is really at an alarming point right now. Just to neutralize threats from Iran, whose military strength isn't even a tenth of China's, the US is completely overwhelmed. This operational imbalance immediately sparks a massive question. Can the United States maintain its military dominance simultaneously in the Middle East, Europe, and the Indo-Pacific, especially if a major crisis erupts before their ammo depots are restocked? For defense analysts, this is incredibly worrying given global interests, especially in the Western Pacific, right on China's doorstep. The weapon systems they just depleted are actually the backbone of the US war plan to counter a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Patriot and THAAD are the primary shields relied upon to protect American bases, like the military facilities in Guam, Okinawa in Japan, and bases in South Korea. Meanwhile, Tomahawk and PrSM cruise missiles are the long-range offensive spearheads designed to shatter China's anti-access and area denial, or A2AD, defense bubbles. The fact that Iran, with a much smaller and technologically inferior missile force compared to Beijing, managed to force the US to drain its strategic reserves exposes a massive vulnerability. The Chinese People's Liberation Army currently possesses thousands of advanced ballistic and cruise missiles, including the DF-21D and DF-26D anti-ship ballistic missiles, famously dubbed the carrier killers. These missiles are specifically designed to overwhelm and penetrate American air defense networks across the vast Western Pacific, and this is an absolute nightmare for the US naval fleet. If the worst-case scenario unfolds in the Taiwan Strait, mathematical calculations show that the remaining US missile inventory could be wiped out entirely in just a matter of weeks, or possibly even days for specific interceptor categories. This situation completely shatters the Pentagon's classic assumption that their defense industry capacity could sustain high-intensity warfare on two different fronts at the same time. But the reality is completely different. Defense experts estimate that it will take the US 3 to 5 years just to close this capability gap. Systems like Patriot and THAAD have incredibly complex supply chains and take a very long time to produce. Before this crisis, Tomahawk missile production was recorded at only dozens of units per year. This limited supply of interceptor missiles creates a highly dangerous domino effect for the global geopolitical posture. If the American air defense umbrella thins out, their ability to project combat power will shrink drastically. Critical logistical facilities like runways, fuel depots, and command centers in the Indo-Pacific will become easy targets for precision strikes. And the real fear is that China could exploit exactly this condition if they genuinely intend to make a move, right when the US is unprepared to help protect their allies. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the Brazilian government is making rapid moves. The Brazilian Navy just signed a contract to order a second batch of 4 Tamandare-class stealth frigates, bringing their total fleet of these advanced warships to 8. This ambitious project is being carried out in local Brazilian shipyards through the Águas Azuis consortium. This is a joint venture involving the German shipbuilding giant ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems, or TKMS, alongside local aerospace and technology companies Embraer and ATEC. The decision to build all 8 hulls domestically is a brilliant move to ensure the independence of their national defense industry, while also absorbing high-level technology transfers from Europe. The Tamandare-class itself is a modern derivative of the legendary German MEKO warship family, which has proven its reliability in various navies worldwide thanks to its modular design. Looking at the technical specs, the Tamandare-class frigate is designed with fairly compact dimensions, measuring 107.2 meters in length with a displacement of around 3,500 tons. For comparison, it's smaller than the French Admiral Ronart-class frigate, which weighs in at 4,460 tons. However, despite its efficient size, the Tamandare packs a punch that cannot be underestimated. This ship is built with low visibility or stealth principles, which significantly minimizes its radar and infrared signature, making it extremely hard for enemy sensors to detect in the open ocean. As a multi-role warship, this platform is armed to dominate 3 dimensions of maritime warfare simultaneously: anti-air defense, anti-surface warfare, and anti-submarine warfare. One of the most prominent technological elements of the Tamandare class is its TRS-4D radar system. This AESS maritime surveillance radar is highly advanced, claimed to be capable of tracking up to 1,000 targets simultaneously at a range of up to 250 kilometers, giving the fleet commander absolute situational awareness. The plan is for the first ship of this class to become operational very soon, while the second batch is scheduled to reinforce the fleet by the late 2020s or early 2030s. If we analyze this holistically, what Brazil is doing provides a really interesting context. They're bringing in warships with European technology, but assembling them with local industry. It's a remarkably smart move to acquire technology and invaluable lessons for their domestic defense sector. And concluding what's been happening with the US, it's quite fascinating as well. America's forced to massively scale up its combat power. Considering that just facing Iran is already draining their strength, imagine what would happen if they had to go up against a power that sits way above Iran, like China. It's going to be very interesting to see what steps the US will take next. So what do you think about the news above? Let me know in the comments.